Remember your favorite teacher? It could have been in college or maybe it was pre-K. It might have even been a family member. All parents are teachers after all. Whether it was at home or in school, chances are your favorite teacher got you excited about learning, made you eager to explore a topic and learn everything you could about it. Joshua Villareal wants to have that kind of impact on his students at Madison High School here in San Antonio. And he's going to give us a lesson on engaging students and making them eager to learn. Welcome to Bearcast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is Bearcast, a weekly interview with business, political, education, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationships between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. Josh Villareal is in his 10th year as a teacher. After teaching middle school math, he returned to his alma mater, Madison High School, where he now teaches animation, video production, photography, and graphic design. He's also taught web design, engineering, architecture, and robotics, and has been the faculty advisor to the Madison yearbook staff. With degrees from UTSA, the University of Arkansas, and Stephen F. Austin, he's an adjunct professor in the digital video and cinema production department at Northwest Vista College. He's also bringing his fourth team to Bearfest. Josh, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Man, you're knee deep in the San Antonio educational world. I know you were in civil engineering before you became a teacher. What made you want to get into teaching?
Well, back in high school, I always wanted to be a teacher. I used to do those where you would go to the elementary schools and help out, and then life kind of sidetracked me. Found myself in engineering because I do love math. And so when I finally started becoming a teacher, I was teaching math to start. But back in engineering, I did a lot of the trainings for other employees, new employees. And so it just it fit well. I liked teaching other people. And so when I had the opportunity to get out of engineering and into teaching, I took advantage of it.
Okay. All right. And it's interesting that you're teaching at both the high school and the college level. You're kind of double dipping. How, I know there's a huge difference between, it's kind of a life-changing moment to go from high school to college. How do you see that in the students? What's the biggest difference between a high school kid and a college kid?
I think in the areas that I teach, when I get kids in high school, they don't really know what they want to do. Right. They take it sometimes on accident, sometimes on purpose. They sign up for video class, photography. You know, they might hear that I'm a nice teacher, so they sign up, but
nobody ever heard that.
Yeah, their passion's not quite developed. And so they come in not really knowing what they want to do. So the big difference is in high school, you're still having to motivate them and inspire them and help them figure out, where their passion really is. In college, I get the privilege because I teach kind of the upper level classes, and that I get the kids that I already know. Right. So I get the kids that, I'm more of a stepping stone in a career path that they know they want to do. They want to be in film. And so I'm just one of the professors, but they've already established, hey, I want to be in film. A lot of my students are older, more mature. And so it's not so much, getting them inspired is more so just pushing them, getting them to be more creative and innovative. But the big one in high school is just getting them, to buy into what I'm selling and for them to just figure out what they really want to do with their life.
Well, so that's interesting about the motivational aspect of it. When you get a new student in one of your media classes at the high school level, how do you motivate them? What's the first thing you tell them?
Well, part of my teacher speech in the beginning is I tell them that, unlike a lot of the other classes in high school, mine specifically can lead to a job right when you get out. I have a lot of students in high school that are already working in the field, taking photographs of their own, working for companies. And, a lot of that is a lot of kids, they know they may not be going to college. And so, getting that angle of, look, this can lead to a job. It's not a class you have to take. It's a class you're choosing to take. And so I convince them, hey, like there's opportunity here, and it's a class that you can be creative in and be yourself and do what you really want to do. And it usually, it scares a couple off because I do tell them to, on the buy-in side, I don't I don't teach to try and get every kid to fall in love with what I do. You know, if you don't want to be in there, you know, I don't want you to be in there and feel like you're wasting your time. I mean, there's only so many classes to take in high school. So, you know, I really want them to know what they're getting into, and then they can make a decision from there.
Right. Well, so you're obviously interested in media production, teaching animation, video production, photography, all the different types of media that you teach. What is it about the media that attracts you? And can you see that in a new student? When you see a new kid come into your class, can you look at him and say, yeah, he's into it, she's into it?
Honestly, I know I cannot pinpoint a kid right off the bat, because a lot of the kids I get, especially, you know, in video and in animation, they're quiet kids. You know, they like to be behind the scenes. They like behind the computer screen, behind the camera. And so gauging their interest is kind of tough, because they're not social kids. You know, they learn eventually. You've got to learn to communicate. But on the front end, no, it's really tough to tell. But I think what I do with them, what attracts me, I think, is I love seeing the kids being able to be as creative as they want. There are a lot of teachers that they have their, you know, they got their teacher book and they follow it. And every year I ask the kids, what do you want to learn? You know, what's your interest? And this is the first year, actually, like, I've got kids that they want to learn more about podcasts. And so I've been purchasing equipment all year, and we're starting it next week. And it's, you know, it's never been my passion, but I finally got a group of kids interested. And so I just want them to be creative however they want to be creative. Right. And I think that's what attracts me to it is, you know, I've been a math teacher. I've been a science teacher. And, you know, there's creative ways to teach those subjects. It's just, I don't think the kids get the opportunity to dictate what kind of creativity goes into it as much as they do in areas like this. Right. Right. It's interesting. I had that conversation with David Norris from KABB about, you know, everybody's a storyteller. He's a storyteller. Bakers are storytellers. Accountants are storytellers. It's just a different medium. It's how you tell the story. Now you've been, I mentioned in the intro that this is your 4th year at Bearfest, the 4th time you brought a team. Let me just go through the backstory there a little bit. Your partners have been Urban 15, an arts organization, Eva's Heroes, a human services organization. The Rivard Report, that was interesting that you guys paired up with the Rivard Report last year, a nonprofit journalism organization. And this year you're paired with Chromosome 18, which is for people with developmental issues and physical issues. That's interesting. How do you choose your nonprofit that you're pairing with? Do your kids dictate it, or do you guide them? Believe it or not, the first year we were paired, Urban 15 was given to us. You know, we had chose back then. You know, we were asked, you know, what kind of organization we want, and we went into kind of the art side. We chose that, and we were paired with them. But every other organization, we've actually initiated contact. With Eva's Heroes, we were fortunate that we did a job shadow day with them prior, you know, and it just naturally fit. It was like, hey, we already have been working with you. How about it? The Rivard Report was more of my students last year. They wanted the behind the scenes of what they were doing. And I said, what better way than to see, you know, somebody that's doing what you want to do. And that was more of I know the Rivard Report, they're amazing, and they probably don't need a huge spotlight shined on them, you know, and I'm sure what we did was not, you know, really compared to what they do every day, but it was just a chance for my students to see what happens on that side. And then this year with Chromosome 18, I actually have been working with them for a couple of years. I've made films with them through Essay Works. They do student internships. And I've worked with Neil and with Dr. Cody before. And so it was one of those that, you know, I wonder if they'd be interested, because they're super nice, great. I've been to their research facilities. And when I proposed it to the kids, they were like, you know what, last year was great. We learned a lot. But they didn't feel like they didn't feel like they were helping them as much as an organization that could, you know, use that attention, that spotlight a little more like Chromosome 18. Isn't that amazing? It's interesting that one of the goals of Bearfest is to give kids a real world work experience. This is what it's like to have a client, and they have expectations, and you got to answer to them.
they go into it as a way to learn, the kids go into it a way to learn more about media production, but they're also learning real world job skills, supply chain management, communications. Do your students realize that, or is that going under the radar? Are we sneaking that in on them?
Well, I will say initially I was sneaking it in. I mean, from the first year to the fourth year has been different. I have kids. I've only had two students that have done this for 3 years.
Okay.
One of them graduated last year, so she didn't get to do it this year. And then I have a senior this year. It's been in it for 3. I think initially I don't want to scare them.
Right,
if you throw the whole scope of it at them at once, it's overwhelming. But this group I have this year, they did it all together last year. And so they understand now. They understand, we've got to work together.
Right.
I do have teams of people, but they understand too that in the end, it's one project. And so even though I've got, 2 kids on graphics, 3 on film, there still needs to be a coordination, because in the end, it's chromosome 18 that we're doing this for. And that collaboration side has been amazing. I don't want to scare them, because a lot of kids come in not really knowing. We always try to bring in a couple of new ones every year so they get their, the feel. But as the way you describe it, not specifically, but I think on the back end, when we look back, that's when we have that discussion of this is what you just did, and kind of put it into context as it is in the real world. And it makes more sense to them that way.
True. Yeah. Don't throw them into the deep end of the pool with no life preserver. Let them realize, look what we did. One of the things I've heard from other teachers is that the students go into the project excited that we're going to get to make a video, or we're going to get to design some graphics, but then they meet the people at the nonprofit. They meet the people they're working with, and realize that this is for real. This is not a music video. People are counting on you. You need to deliver, because this is going to be their outreach tool. And the kids suddenly become more serious about it, and realize that they're not, it is fun. It's fun to do, but it's not just for fun, that there's a real mission here. Do your kids get that? Do you see that evolution as they step up to meet their clients?
Yeah, absolutely. When we bring in new students, I think they take a little bit of a backseat and they watch. It's a lot of observation at first, because they realize, okay, we know it's a big deal. We can hear the older students talk about it. But yeah, I mean, they go into it and there is initial excitement, but I know that once you've done it once, the kids, they're planning before I'm even planning. They're coming to me saying, hey, we've got things we got to do. They're my constant reminders of, hey, we need to email them. Hey, we need to get over there. So they're holding me accountable more than I'm even having to hold them accountable.
Nice.
Because they know every year at that deadline, there's stress. There's almost a little bit of a scramble, no matter how early we start, of making sure everything is turned in the way that, the client is happy, we're happy. And honestly, I've taken a very hands-off approach. Besides, I am the communicator with chromosome 18.
Right.
I'm like the in-between, but the kids, aside from mentoring and coaching, it's hard, because as a teacher, you want to help, but at the same time, you realize, what, I need y'all to figure it out on your own. And they realize the scope of what it is, how serious it is. And, I mean, it's been great. There's really nothing else like it. Where there's other competitions, but the other ones are very, it's creative in that they get to do exactly what they want. And in this one, there is creativity, but there's a client. There's somebody you've got to please, somebody that you want to make happy. And that just is something that we can't mimic in a classroom or, through, student competition. So it really has been amazing.
That's great. You mentioned that the way it usually plays out is the young kids watch the older kids for the start to see how does this work? How do we interact here? One of the things I've heard is that the festival causes, the project causes kids to cross the normal clique lines, that freshmen don't hang out with seniors and that sort of thing. That, well, now we're all working on a common project. I don't care if you're a senior or a freshman or a sophomore or whatever. I need your support, your participation in this project. Have you seen that? Have you seen those lines blur, that I don't care what class you're in, I don't care what grade you're in, we're a team?
Yeah. The first year we had 4 kids, and one of them kind of disappeared halfway through. So it was really 3 kids. And those 3 kids, they were in the same class, so it worked out.
Okay.
The next year, my students said, "Hey, we're not all in the same class. We need to meet more." And what they did is we created an after-school club, an
Oh,
AV
wow.
club, that's just pretty much dedicated to Bear Fest and other fundraising and things,
Nice.
opportunities. So they took it upon themselves to say, "Hey, we need to figure out a way to come together, not pieces here and there. You're in another class." So they forced me a little bit, said, let's start a club after school. Let's start meeting, and so that way we can all talk at the same time. And so, yeah, I've seen all ages come together, and especially in the media area, like what I teach, the kids can be quiet, quirky. There's a variety of kids. And what I've seen is, yeah, there's friendships that, these kids keep in contact with kids that have graduated.
Oh,
I
nice.
have older students that come back to support, just excited to see how we're doing. And when we bring in younger kids, the older kids almost kind of handpick them. Like they pay attention. Like, I think this kid would be good to bring in. And so we bring him in, and after, a year of watching and being a little bit involved, the next year, those kids are the ones that are leading it. So we're always thinking about the next year. Even though we're on this year, we've brought in about 3 kids this year that have never done it, don't really know what it is. But other students have identified them as, like, they're talented. They have something to add to this. So we constantly are changing and bringing in new kids and growing, and that's all them, it's not me. And so, yeah, what you're saying is those lines are gone. And the common interest is, hey, we love film, or we love photography. And that's what they talk about. That's how they bond. And it's been really neat to see.
That's great. That's great. You raise an interesting point about the maturation process and the kids evolving through the work they're doing. And I've heard that before, that kids that start out as shy and quiet, and I just want to sit in front of the computer, I'm fine, I really don't need a lot of interaction, that they come out of that they develop I don't know if it's self-confidence or how to express it, but they step up because they feel compelled to, that I own this project. This is my work that's being infected, and I'm gonna have my say. Have you seen kids come out of a shell like that?
Yeah, I've actually seen it both ways, believe it or not. I've
Really?
seen quiet kids take the lead, and I've seen some, and I don't want to be negative, but I've seen some very talented kids come up short, because it's not just about being talented in your own area. It's being able to work with each other. It's being able to, communicate, collaborate, being willing to take feedback. And there are some kids that they feel like they don't need the feedback, and I've seen some kids that, it's the quiet ones that start to take over and take the lead because they're leaders, and they've just kind of been, stuck in their shell through high school because maybe they didn't find a way to let it out. And I've actually seen it flip flop. But the good news is that, the ones that, they start off really confident, they get humbled, but they always come back in, and they understand, like, I have something to contribute. Maybe I just wasn't going about it the right way.
Right.
So there's a lot of things learned about yourself, whether you are the quiet one or the one that thinks you know it all. Believe it or not, there's always going to be somebody right next to you that probably knows a little more or something else. And so there's, between, confidence being gained, there's also some humbleness that some of my older kids experience when a younger one comes in, and they're great too. And so they start to work more together, and there's a nice balance. And at this point, I'm really a facilitator. I watch them work, and it's great to see. And, I don't have to steer the car as much. I can just kind of sit back and enjoy the ride. And it's really been good to see those kids change like that.
Well, that's interesting that, part of the process of learning how to work in the media is, you're going to have to learn how to take feedback and listen to other people's ideas, and you're not going to be right every time. You're going to get humbled. So better now than 10 years from now when you're trying to pay the rent.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. Well, Josh, thanks. I appreciate your time and your insight, and I look forward to seeing what you guys and Chromosome 18 are going to produce for this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Randy.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you, you too.